Let's see, that's more seems very few.
All right, well, welcome to the February 9th, 2026 meeting of the Buell City Council. Like to call this meeting to order, and will you join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have a forum?
Yes, we do.
All right, first item is our consent agenda. And that would be the minutes of the January 26th, 2026 regular session, claims for payment, department head report, Public Works, Police and Fire, Commission minutes, Airport Housing Authority, Library, and the clerk treasurer report.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Have to recuse because we had business at my shop. But we are no longer allowed to do business with the city, so. That came out after we did that, so I'm not allowed to.
Yeah. Roll call vote, right?
Yes.
Marla?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Review and consideration of special events application for West End Music Fest on June 27th, 2026. Hi.
I'm C.R. Larson. I'm a local food guy, and I thought it would be really awesome to throw a big party here in Buell. It's not really something that's done, that's what I'm going for. I apologize, my handwriting was horrible. I actually meant to say West End Music Feast. But what I want to change it to Buell Music Feast, just for the acronym. I think it's a little bit more catchy. What I want to do, I'm not asking for anything from the city other than a permit to hold my events. It's an all-day free event for the city, for anybody that wants to join. Plan on having bands all day, for probably between noon and 8 or noon and 9, I think I said on the application. And then as well as a number of different food trucks. I've already talked to a few that are available, as well as a few bands that are still available and willing to perform that are local draws. I didn't want to get too deep into the legwork of making sure, you know, the organization of it until I got a preliminary approval from the folks, from you fine folks.
Well, thank you for doing this. I really feel like Buell needs more fun things in the summer, and I think it's great. I did have a question, because you're selling alcohol.
I will not be selling alcohol, but I will have a beer garden there available. I've already talked to a few different caterers who are available have alcohol licenses that they would be allowed to legally do that.
Supposed to say, right?
Yes, ma'am. And I have friends that have insurance companies that could help me out with all the different aspects of this. I've done other events in the past, like big events with like 80s, 90s bands and stuff like that, and sometimes to great success and sometimes my butt. That's why this time I'm not trying to make any money. I'm not charging, even gonna charge the food trucks. I'm gonna have some local friends that are business owners, like sponsor some of the food trucks and everything like that, and get a couple sponsors to help pay for bands. I was gonna try to talk to a local, maybe one of the local teams, a coach or something like that, see if I could work out a transportation problem to keep, maybe transfer people from one of the big parking lots in town over down to the events and back to kind of cut down on the cluster downtown.
How many people do you think, you say you've done it before, like how many people? do you-
I've had events anywhere from 500 people up to, 10,000 people, but I'm not having any bands that are gonna, that would warrant that kind of a, and as first time events, I'm just, like I said, just hoping to pay the bills without having to come out of pocket. Not trying to make a profit. In fact, the gentleman that I spoke to about doing the beer garden, if I couldn't find somebody here in town that would be willing to do it, his arrangement would, he would take a certain percentage of his profits and donate it to the Humane Society here in the Magic Valley, so I'm a dog guy, so.
Yeah, my only concern with the alcohol was just wristbands or how you're gonna.
Yes, so fenced off area like a normal event with somebody checking ID at the, and then a stamp as well. And then checking and rechecking on, upon entry, re-entry to the beer garden. Which I would have nothing to do with financial, like I said, I'm not trying to make money off.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to approve, the special events application for the West End Music, Feast on June 27th, 2026.
I'll second. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Discussion.
What?
You just have.
Yeah, is there any more discussion?
I have to recuse my vote on this, here is my ex-brother-in-law, and he puts his food truck on my property, so. I should probably shouldn't vote for this, but.
Brett? Yes. Frank?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
All right.
And I'll, if there's anything else, I'll be back in touch.
Just email me. Thanks, everybody.
All right. For new business, all right, first item is our action item review and consideration of airport commission recommendations.
We have, Josh and Thomas. Josh is with the airport, are you the chair of the airport board?
I'm secretary.
Secretary of the airport
My
board.
name is Josh Kenny and I'm on the fuel airport advisory board. Our board terms run 3 years, they're staggered. We have two that were up as of January of this year. We've talked to those members, Dan Claus and Phil Villaniga. Both are interested in continuing for an additional 3-year term. The board discussed that, didn't feel there was any issues with that, and we voted unanimously to recommend to the city council that you accept that recommendation to have those members continue for another term. So we're just here to present that.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve Dan Claus and Phil Nondiega for another 3-year term as airport commissioner of the HRL. You need it. Okay. So both. I think we can do both. Okay, yeah.
We're exactly the same day.
Second that.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? All right, roll call.
Yes.
Brett? Yes. Brian?
Yes, Mark.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right, the next item is review and consideration of tribe color run proposal. Do we have, yeah.
Thanks for having me on tonight. Were you guys able to get the information I sent? Okay, perfect. So you've already seen our stuff. We are just requesting that we be allowed to hold our 5th annual Color Run event. It's a fundraiser and the money goes back to Tribe PTO, which is an organization that supports popular elementary school primarily. And we are specifically requesting use of the bathrooms in the park on that day. And then there is a short area of the route that does run on the road. In the last couple of years, we haven't had any issues with traffic or anything to the extent that we needed to even stop a single car. So I don't know if I'm requesting enough or too little, but.
Yeah, well, I'll make that, well, I just wanted to disclose, I am part of Tribe, but I do not benefit in any way financially or anything, so I just wanted to disclose that. And then I'll make a motion to approve the color run on May 23rd.
So. Have a motion, second, any other discussion?
Looks good. Very nice.
Alright, well, Marla,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Portland.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, we have next item is a presentation of comprehensive plan update by Clearwater Financial.
Abby and Cameron, can you guys hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Cameron, can you hear us?
Yep, I'm gonna be with y'all.
All right, well, thank you so much for having us. As you mentioned, this is a presentation on the comprehensive plan update. We're going to go through a few updates regarding the latest priority survey that we conducted for Buell, as well as results from the stakeholder interviews that we also conducted. And then we'll walk through a little bit about where we are and help orient new council to where we've been and kind of the progress and trajectory of this project. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oh, Chelsea, it looks like it's disabled. Can you help with that? Or do you want to share for us what works best?
We do that. Maybe
Okay.
try that.
All right. Okay, can you see my screen all right? Okay, excellent. All right, so we're going to start off with the update and results from the priority survey that we conducted. We launched this survey as a follow-up to our original comprehensive plan survey. Cameron had mentioned that last week when we were on with you. That survey garnered about 320 responses from the community. This one launched in December. We've received 31 responses. So we're going to walk through those results and how we came up with this survey, why we decided to push it out, and again, walk you through where we've been and where we're going. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So this survey, as I mentioned, it is a follow-up to what we launched last year. And out of that original survey, 3 major themes emerged as priority topics for the city, and those were around housing, infrastructure, and economic development. So this is a much more condensed survey, much shorter for residents to take. That was also a reason that we pushed this survey out. The original survey, as you may be aware, covered all aspects of a comprehensive plan. And so under Idaho statute, that includes 17 different components. And they may or may not be familiar to residents, but the length of the survey that we saw, and we presented on this last year, we started to see some fall off in response rates as the questions went on, but we were able to maintain a steady response rate. And that helped us, again, identify these 3 areas and then create something that was much more feasible for the community and residents of Buell to navigate through and respond to. And so this is just another data point for the city as it moves forward with its comprehensive planning process. And we'll get into some of these results in just a minute. So this slide, you all have this in your packet as well, talks about how it was designed. It is very targeted around those 3 areas of housing, infrastructure, and economic development. We worked with the city staff to put these questions together. really refine what we were asking, and then make sure that it was in language that residents could be familiar with and recognize within their community. And then we maintained outreach through social media. The city had some social posts about this. We opened it in December, and then we ended up closing it at the end of January. So again, this is a great data point for the city, but to really help inform the path forward as we identify what your community prioritizes, what's important to it, and what they'd like to see specifically. So it's not, we want more economic development. It's much more refined than that, with some ideas and brainstorming that happened throughout the survey. So this slide here, you saw this in your packet. This is a high-level overview. On the left-hand side, you can see the different phases of the project. You can see the red dotted line right here of where we are. And overall, it is a little bit of a lengthy timeline. We are nearing the close, and we hope to have this completed for the city by the end of May. But given there's some turnover in staff in the fall and some different contributing factors to what has drawn this out just a little bit longer than we originally expected. But this gives you a good idea of where we're at working on that analysis and goal setting piece, and moving into the draft plan development. And it's not really reflected here on this slide, but we have started getting initial drafts over to the city about what we would recommend, just what's in the current plan, what might be missing, some outdated links to code, references to statute, those sort of refinements that we can do up front, so that when a draft is ready for public input and that open house mechanism that we'll get into a little bit later this spring, there's a really solid draft ready for review and consideration. And Cameron, if you have any thoughts or anything, feel free to jump on in. I'm going to keep.
This is great.
Okay. We did want to just spend a minute taking you through some of the resources around the comp plan update that you might not be really familiar with. I've got a screenshot here of what's on the city's current page, and I'm going to go ahead and just navigate to that page quickly for you. This page was developed with some prior city staff that are no longer there, but it goes over, what is a comprehensive plan, why it matters, not just to the city council, but also to the residents of Buell. And we've put some really great material in here. Residents can access the current comprehensive plan. They can access prior reports and presentation by Clearwater. You can go into, what goes into a comprehensive plan. Again, I mentioned it briefly a few minutes ago, the 17 components that are required under Idaho statute. This is a slide of how it's developed, and some of these might look a little familiar from your presentation, that the training that was done last week. There's a link to the community survey. That's the more broad community survey that we referenced. That is still open. And the reason for that is that gathering input doesn't have an end date, and in fact can really help continue to inform where this is going, as this is very much a collaborative process between the city and its residents. So we also have frequently asked questions, prior media coverage. So if you haven't had a chance to look through that page and maybe familiarize yourself a little bit with everything that's gone on with the plan so far, we'd really encourage you to do that and make use of that resource. But this slide is just screenshots of what that page looks like. Here's some examples of some of the great media coverage the city has gotten. And if you're interested in those specific articles, we're happy to send those to you so that you're able to read those as well and really familiarize yourself with the progress of this project, because it's been really great so far. Here are a few examples of social posts that we've created, and these posts specifically can also be found on the website as well, because they're really kind of a comp plan 101. How can I get involved? Why does Buell need a comp plan? What's in a comp plan? And so that was really our intention behind the design of these materials and the content, is to make it a quick, somewhat easy read that doesn't put you to sleep right away. So that was our hope, and I hope that comes through in the materials. So moving on, here are results, from the priority survey. So we like to look at the demographics up front, so you have an idea of who's responding and where your respondents are participating from. You can see the majority of your respondents, almost 70%, are inside the city limits. Then you had a smaller percentage near Buell and an even smaller percentage outside of Buell. So getting into the first question, this first section is on housing. We had a rating of 0 to 4, and housing by the respondents pulled an average rating of 2.14 out of 4. So you can see here with the bar graph what the percent of respondents were in terms of good, unsure. But if respondents selected something that was poor or fair, we asked them to expand a little bit. And I should pause and just let you know that if you're interested in the specific comments, we're happy to provide those to you as well. These are summarized thematically so that you're not seeing necessarily every single comment, but the themes that emerged from the comments that we received. So some of the reasons for those poor or fair ratings: limited rental housing options, an aging housing stock. So older homes, possibly in poor condition and maybe more expensive to maintain. Affordability is a #1 concern that emerged from the survey. Just housing costs might seem out of reach for working families, young adults, seniors, and then lower income households. So as we continue on with housing, which types of housing should be prioritized over the next 5 to 10 years? And they could select up to 3, which is where you might see higher levels of percentages because they were able to select multiple options. But starter homes, infill development, and then apartments, small rental units emerged as the top 3 types of housing that the city should consider prioritizing. So when we asked respondents what they thought most limits the housing growth in Buell, we had a tie for one. The #1 spot, 25% each. One was market demand and the other was construction costs. Second was other, and then we did reflect all the comments here. The water bills keep rising, lack of employment opportunities, interest rates, cost of water into town is a huge deterrent. And then we saw the third highest ranked reason for limited housing growth, and that's land availability. So we had a few other options around city regulations and zoning, or infrastructure and utility capacity. Those didn't rank in the top 3. Moving on into the infrastructure section. This one is infrastructure related to roads. So how would you rate the condition of Buell's roads? The average rating was a 2.1 out of 4. You can see over here, we had 46% rating them as good, but then fair around 29%, poor at 7%, and then people who were unsure around 14%. So these are responses. We had 8 responses in that ranking question. So poor road conditions and potholes. Respondents felt that repairs were slow, incomplete, or temporary. There's some frustration with some long-standing visible problem areas. And we had specific streets that were repeatedly cited as examples, such as Burley Avenue. But overall, it came through from the comments that these are issues that affect the majority, if not all, of the Buell residents. So as we look at infrastructure for sidewalks, that had an average rating of almost 1.8 out of 4. You can see we had quite a huge response rate, the highest at 32% for fair, and then 28.6 for good. We can get into some of those comments and reasons on the next slide. So we had 12 responses. You can see we don't have 12 bullets. So these are themed summaries out of what the comments said, but cracked, raised, and uneven sidewalks, trip hazards, inconsistent sidewalk coverage. So some areas have them, some areas don't. Some of those sidewalks are obstructed. And then a slight perceived inequity in city-funded improvements, meaning sidewalks may not be prioritized as something that needs to be improved, whereas something else that residents felt was more important received priority. So we move on to the water system piece of infrastructure. That was a 2.3 out of 4. You can see we had a good chunk of people, almost 36%, rating the water infrastructure as good. Very good was pretty small at 14%. Unsure was 25%. And what that's telling us is that there's potential for some education there. So if residents aren't sure whether it's good or not, that's a good clue for the city, for Clearwater, to say, okay, how can we help you understand that a little bit more? What qualifies as good versus what qualifies as poor? So again, can you tell us a bit more about your choice? High water costs came through resoundingly through those comments. Poor water quality, including taste and hardness, and then reliability issues with wells going down periodically. And that long-standing pricing promises have been seen as unmet. As we go on to the sewer system, that was a little bit higher rating, 2.9 out of 4. You can see the majority of respondents, 54%, rated that as good. And there was 0 that rated that as poor. So it's really encouraging for the city, some really good feedback for you. We move on to the drainage system. Average ratings 2.6 out of 4. You can see 40%, almost 41% rated it as good, but then a slightly lesser amount, 33%, as unsure. So again, an opportunity for some education or clarification around that, and possibly digging a little bit deeper into what that unsure means. What is it that they are unsure about when they're rating that and looking at those categories? So here we did explore more about some choices. So there was reference to some recurring flooding in parts of town, aging drainage infrastructure, uncertainty about system performance, and then there was a comment about severe ditch and culvert blockages that can cause property damage. So which 2 improvements should be the highest priorities when it comes to its infrastructure? Respondents could select up to 2, but above and away, roads repair and maintenance was 52%, and then new or improved sidewalks and water system upgrades were a close second. So you can see there's also some other selection here too. And we had seven comments there. So there was some advocacy for lower water costs, prioritizing the water and sewer first, and then roads and drainage. There was some reference to more parks, walking paths, and bike safety. We did get a comment about restoring and improving the community pool, traffic signal timing and intersection safety issues, and then affordability issues, really came through strongly in those other comments as well, with utility and infrastructure costs. So we did ask, are there other particular needs that the city has that would warrant some attention? We had 9 responses there. Burley Avenue came up repeatedly. Robertson Street also came up. Broadway north of Main, sidewalks being in poor condition, residential parking issues, traffic safety concerns, so some potential for speed limit enforcement, citywide sewer service gaps within the city limits, and then governance concerns related to city leadership and administration. And we wanted to just touch briefly on that. We can share those comments with you, but that was definitely, it was a single comment, and it was more related to just some transparency and making sure that residents are aware and involved or have the ability to be involved with how the city moves forward with its planning. So the last section of the survey centered on economic development. Our first question, which they could select up to 3, which types of new or expanded businesses would these respondents like to most see in Buell? So you can see we've got light industrial, local employment, entertainment and recreation, and then everyday retail. Family-friendly dining, that came up 42%. That's also something that emerged quite strongly from our initial survey as well. Having more options for families to dine, that emerged early on. And this is a conversation, I think, Cameron, after we maybe get through some of these slides, that also came through in our stakeholder interviews as well, but we might want to touch on that a little bit. Okay. How important is it to these respondents that the city is actively recruiting and supporting new businesses? So 50% said very important. We had 7%, almost 8% say unsure, but we had 0 respondents say that it was unimportant or very unimportant. So this economic development did emerge as the #1 priority out of this survey that the residents and respondents would like to focus on, and we'll get into that in a minute. So respondents had the ability to rate their agreement with these statements. The city should focus on attracting more dining and retail downtown. Buell needs a full service grocery store, and supporting small businesses should be a top priority. So you can see out of the 3, focusing on more dining and retail and then supporting small businesses, we're 2.7 out of 3, where the grocery store was slightly less. And I'm going to point this out right here on the bottom. For each of these questions, we're capturing the number of responses that we were garnered during the survey period. And what's really encouraging about this, despite it being 31 respondents, is that we didn't see a fall off as we went through the questions. We had a really strong maintenance of engagement throughout the survey, and that's always encouraging to see as we're looking at the results, that people chose to answer all of the questions or nearly all of them versus selectively picking questions and skipping others. So if the city could focus on just one area first, which would it be? You can see here economic development, like I just mentioned, 50% of respondents want to focus on economic development, followed by infrastructure, and then followed by housing. So that's a really good indication of where your residents, your respondents are looking in terms of city planning and what they're prioritizing, even above some of those issues we saw come through in the survey for housing, such as affordability. So we did ask if there were any other ideas and thoughts, and these are just, again, high-level themes for the city's consideration. Focusing on youth and families came through really strongly. Public safety and support of that. Traffic and enforcement, you saw that come through in a few slides earlier. Building that communication and trust between city leadership and governance and the residents of Buell. Economic development, again, that was reiterated in the other ideas and thoughts. So it's a theme that's come through really strongly. And we do want to also point out that there was a lot of community pride, positivity shared about the city of Buell and what it's doing, that came through in the comments as well. As you know, in addition to, yes, we know there's growth coming, we want to maintain our small town character. That's been really prevalent throughout all of our data points that we've collected so far as well. But it's really encouraging to see, especially in something that might be a little bit drier of material, such as a comp plan, that people are taking that opportunity to express appreciation for the city and just taking moments out of their time to take the survey and engage, and then pass on, you know, how passionate they are about where they live. And then we do have, this is a link to the page, and then We do have, I'm not sure if new council is aware that the city received some grants to help support this effort and offset the cost. So through the Idaho Department of Commerce as well as Blue Cross of Idaho Foundation. So I'll pause there. I know that was like a fire hose, fast and furious, but are there any questions that you'd like to talk about before we get into the stakeholder summary? Okay, I'm hoping that means there's not, and my mic is still working. So Cameron, can you hear me? Okay, I can hear you. Okay. Good. Okay, so moving on, we're going to talk about the stakeholder summary. So the stakeholder process is really cool. The city put together a list of individuals that they would like us to talk to with a specific set of questions. These interviews are done virtually. They last about an hour. And participation can vary between clients, and sometimes there's some reluctance or difficulty getting people scheduled. We had a really great time, great conversations with these stakeholders. They represent, and I'll get into this in just a second. I guess I can start moving my slide. This is just the agenda, and we'll walk you through the report that you also have a copy of as well. But we conducted a series of stakeholder interviews, and one of the most encouraging things about that process is that sometimes we can engage in these conversations. We follow a series of questions so that then we can present the results to you thematically, and we can follow kind of an outline because all the respondents are asked the same questions. These are anonymous, but sometimes we can go through them and they can be over pretty quickly. So we schedule them for an hour, and sometimes they're 15 minutes. People don't have much to say or they're not really sure. We did not experience that in these interviews. We had full hour-long interviews with most of the stakeholders. We did focus on community character, city services, growth, priorities, what they view as challenges, what they see as strengths within the city. And, you know, they represented a broad array of business, civic, nonprofit, and then long-term resident perspectives. And if you have a chance to look at our original survey results that we did, the majority of the people who responded had been in Buell longer than 10 years. So there's a high level of engagement and care that residents have for their city and its planning process, even when it comes to something like a comp plan. And one of the things that emerged was that growth is inevitable, but proactive planning is essential to protect what the community values, as well as the quality of life that your residents have come, that's why they live there, and what they want to preserve. And so that really came through strongly in these interviews as well. So one of the main themes that came out of here, and one of our more thematic questions, was around the community identity and character. So we just mentioned in our previous presentation slides, that welcoming small town community, that really came through as a reason why people choose to live and stay in Buell. And as Buell is growing, which on the comprehensive plan webpage, there is a demographic report if you haven't had a chance to look at that, but that includes growth projections for the city, what it looks like, going into 2060. So we've got 2030, 2040, 2050, and 2060. And so that's a really interesting perspective and lens to look at this comprehensive planning process through. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, I really encourage you to take a peek at that and see what resonates, what's standing out to you, and use it as a thoughtful tool as you move forward with your planning. But as we talk to them about preservation, in terms of what do they want to preserve, what's important to them to keep, stakeholders really support growth, but they want it to be cautious. They want it to be scaled locally so that it protects what keeps in their mind Buell special. Your stakeholders really had a shared goal of maintaining a connected and engaged community, which aligns with the community design and land use planning components of a comp plan. So, we got some really thoughtful responses. There's a lot of value and care that your stakeholders have, that they not only echo for themselves, but also for their own circles of influence, the neighbors that they know, the people that they work with through their business, different pieces of that. But they were able to represent not only their perspective, but also things that they've talked about with their neighbors and friends, and that came through in these stakeholder interviews. So when we talked to them about current conditions, what do they think? How are things going? We had kind of a mixed bag, but really generally positive regarding how the city functions and its services that it provides. So very complimentary to city staff. They were described as responsive and accessible. A lot of times they will just, these stakeholders will just pick up the phone and they're able to get help immediately. And that's a luxury that residents have in Buell, whereas maybe larger communities don't have somebody picking up the phone. They go through an automated system and they press 10 different keys, or they're saying customer service, and it's a real perk to your stakeholders, to your residents, that Buell offers that to them. So they did note some broader structural challenges. So again, that economic development piece really coming through, limited momentum in downtown vitality, business attraction, and then reinvestment in what's happening economically for the city. And then there was some note of vacant and underutilized buildings as well. So rather than being a roadblock or something to kind of get hung up on, these stakeholders were saying, here's some possible untapped potential for the city. How could we use that differently or more or at all? But really wanting to start those conversations. So we talked to them about city services and infrastructure. Again, city responsiveness was really praised, especially for after hours issues and when an issue requires cross-department coordination, which again, in larger communities, not necessarily something that's available or accessible to them. But in Buell, again, it's feasible for the city to respond in that way to its residents, and people notice. And so, many kudos to you. There are some infrastructure capacity concerns. Water supply is seen as a potential growth constraint, and we saw that in the priority survey as well through those other comments about why the water infrastructure might have received a lower rating. Transportation and roadway needs were noted, especially major access routes. And again, that really lines up with what came through in the priority survey. And I will pause for a second just to also note that we are seeing a lot of consistency in these data points for the city. So the original survey, the priority survey, the stakeholder summary, there's not divergence in what the residents or what a particular group of respondents or stakeholders are seeing in your city. They're all very well aligned, which is a really strong indicator that you've got great participation in your city planning process, but also that your residents are paying attention, and that these are things they get to carry through from the beginning of this planning to the end. But sometimes we don't see that level of alignment between multiple data points. But this is really encouraging and really helps point the city in a direction of, okay, we know where to go. We're hearing this from 3-4 different sources now. So it's really beneficial to you. And again, on going back to the slides with the city services and infrastructure, making sure the city is fiscally responsible, including prioritization of its resources, and really laying that against the backdrop of long-term sustainability. So that was something that matters to these stakeholders, to your respondents, that whatever the city's doing, it's approaching that in a very responsible way, while understanding this long-term, we can't do something for 5 minutes. We need to be able to do this for 20 years. That really emerged as a priority. It's something of importance to these stakeholders. So moving on to growth, land use, and economic vitality. Again, economic development really came through here as a key priority area for the city, downtown and Main Street particularly, even including some walkable options. So making things more connected. There's concern that residential growth isn't matched by local employment or commercial investment. And you might remember from the priority survey, limited employment options might keep people from living inside Buell. And then, that has that trickle down effect where if they're not living in Buell, they're not spending in Buell. And the consensus from the stakeholders that we pulled out is that they want to. They want to stay there. They want to invest there. They want to participate in Buell. And so that came through as a priority. They also mentioned that if the growth is poorly planned, it could threaten the character of your community and of the city. And how we interpreted that and how that came through is, again, that really careful planning, being very intentional, not rushing the process, gathering all the feedback that it needs to gather so that this comprehensive plan is your roadmap. It's your cornerstone from which, each year you get to come back and revisit and take a look and see, does this still make sense, or every 5 years? Okay. So part of our stakeholder questions as well included youth, families, and quality of life. So this is a really, really deeply rooted area of concern for the stakeholders, for your residents. It's important to them, prioritizing the youth and families, the quality of life. There were some recent investments in parks and trails that are really positively viewed by your stakeholders, as well as some gaps, aging facilities, a need for ongoing reinvestment for children and teens. If you take a look at that demographic report, you can see, what the average age is in Buell versus what that younger generation component, that percentage of population, how that looks. And so from the stakeholders, really being able to prioritize things for families, for youth, will enhance the quality of life for them, but also keep people in Buell. Getting close to the end here. So communication, civil engagement, and trust. So city communication, which is a really positive thing, is viewed as effective. Community-wide was seen as more challenging because there's not a single trusted information source. And that goes beyond just the web page, but even the media type of trusted media outlet, whether it's, there's a lot of there's awareness of social media, but not maybe as much use of social media. And so taking an approach of having multiple options available would be beneficial for the city. Stakeholders noted that there's a decline in civic participation, volunteerism, public engagement. And that's something that's a great data point for the city as it moves forward and as it considers how it engages with its residents, not just maybe the more typical ways, but maybe some out of the box thinking could be beneficial there as well. But again, this kind of echoes what's in the priority survey. Consistent, transparent communication will continue to help build that trust between the community and the city. So long-term vision for Buell, balanced growth that can accommodate the change, but preserve what the community really holds dear. Focusing on downtown and Main Street, maybe prioritizing that as an economic hub, but really breathing some life into that. Quality of life investments, helping to increase civic engagement with reduced polarization, and some shared priorities. And the comprehensive plan can serve as that long-term guide. Okay, so some key considerations that emerged for the city as we wrapped up our stakeholder interviews, clear growth guidance to align the infrastructure capacity, the city's fiscal reality, and then the community values. So it is possible to do those things, but it is an intentional effort for the city. Proactive planning as residential growth continues. Working on balancing the housing growth with economic development so that we're supporting that long-term sustainability, that backdrop that we've got to think about. This is for the long term. This is the long game. Again, reinvestment in downtown and Main Street. And then quality of life investments are just seen as essential for bringing the community together and keeping people living in Buell. So ways to be strategic in that implementation. We need that integrated framework to align the land use, infrastructure, and community character. This is where the comp plan is really beneficial for your city and for your planning. Transportation planning, coordinated with land use, economic development, recreation, and community design to really help infuse that quality of life and sense of place for your residents and what they're experiencing being residents of your city. Okay, and then, so in conclusion, again, your residents, similar to what we saw in the priority survey, as well as in the main big survey, there's a really strong appreciation for Buell, alongside people recognizing that change is coming because growth is coming. There's a lot of pride in the city, a lot of pride in how the city operates, its residents, the neighborly feel, the small town community. There's also some realization that there's some infrastructure systems and economic pieces that the city needs to plan for and be ready for and be very intentional about. But again, that thoughtful planning, clear priorities, and maintaining consistent communication with your residents inside and on the outskirts of Buell. But there is, a strong feeling from the stakeholders that, there's an importance of having that resilient economy. So not only retaining jobs, but creating jobs, really infusing that local spending and breathing some life back into the community investment. So the stakeholders we talked to are really excited about the comprehensive plan being seen as this landmark that they can reference, they can look to, they can be part of, really just, again, bring that cohesion that the city wants to keep and develop further. And again, just our discussion slide with our grant acknowledgement, but those are our two presentations for this evening, and happy to answer any questions or anything we can do to help or shed a little more light on where the results are so far. Cameron, do you have anything to add? Oh, sorry.
I just had a question. So in regards to the parking, you said that you have what residents have actually said and just kind of summarized, but then you said that we could look and see what they've actually said. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, we can send over all of the comments, and we can send those over to Chelsea, so you can see all the comments from the survey.
Yeah, great question. And again, just the reason we didn't is just for brevity's sake for the presentation. We wanted to keep it concise, but yeah, happy to send all that over, and you can dive into it.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick update for the council too on the Idaho Bond Bank application. We did want to thank you all, and particularly Chelsea, Jasmine, certainly Jason, for your efforts in that. I just wanted to announce that was approved by the board. And so we are moving forward with that process. And just for the good of the council, I wanted to just share briefly this screenshot. And we're working with Chelsea to get that process moving, and we'll provide updates as we go along. But just just to kind of show you kind of where we were when we first dove into this process from a market perspective and kind of where we are now. Um, Rates have actually really treated us well. So even from our preliminary, conservative estimates, I think we're going to be, knock on wood, entering a pretty good market for the city and achieve a really good savings there. So just wanted to again congratulate the city and thank Jason, Chelsea, everybody for or their efforts on that, and we look forward to moving through the process. It looks like we will be probably about a month to 2 months away from the actual sale itself. We've got to work through the marketing document, scheduling the sale, marketing the sale, and then, the sale itself, and then working towards closing after that is done. But really look forward to that. And again, just appreciate everybody's help and focus on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks so much. Take care.
I just want to make one quick note. I just wanted to express my appreciation for the city staff. It was really nice to see all the positive comments that were put forth, and so I think that's a testament to who you guys are. So thank you.
Thank you. Second. All right, so we can move on to review and consideration of the Beal Chamber of Economic Development and Commerce Sagebrush Day special event permit, including co-sponsorship and beer garden.
I'm Pam Pearson. I am the chairman for the Sagebrush Days Committee, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. And we would like to have a little bit more time than we usually ask for this time. We're gonna see if we can get the Mountain Men to come out, but since they take such an effort to set their stuff up, we would like to ask for the evening of July 2nd for them to set up, and then use of the park there till the morning of July 5th. And then, of course, we would like to have the event the 3rd and 4th, which would include a band and beer garden in both McCluskey and Eastman Park. Like, same as it was last year.
So I'll make a motion to approve the special event permit and to, and co-sponsorship and beer garden of Sagebrush Days, with the Beal Chamber.
Second.
There a motion and a second, any other discussion?
Just want to say thank you, Pam. This is a huge undertaking, and you all do a wonderful
I
job.
know, I didn't mean to get this involved for it.
Well, my family has a blast, and it's such a positive thing for me. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We need. Yeah. All right, roll call vote, Mark?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Bro.
Yes.
All right. And the next thing is, an update on pool and lifeguard process.
We're getting close.
Okay.
You did a pre-pass actual lifeguard training. We took a step back and did a pre-training. Because there was only 3 of the 6 that had passed, so the next group we sent did a pre-training. And 6 of them passed out, and so. We still have another round to go, we're still looking for applicants, just in case, and too many, I guess. So they did pass it free, so we should be looking at 9 lifeguards currently. Okay, we're still looking for an assistant manager, part-time guard. We're getting there.
I think they may have the assistant.
Yeah.
Teresa said tonight, they do have the assistant.
Did they get it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's an assistant and 9/9
And
Awesome.
Good, good.
So then we'll figure out our hours of operation. and we'll-
Well, thanks for all this.
Yeah.
Working so hard, thanks.
It's been struggle.
You.
Struggle.
Is it ideally like 12?
Yeah, because a lot of times we lose one or two during the year and schedules and sports and everything else, not everybody's available. We had one that was last year's possibility that she was gonna be on a family vacation for 6 weeks, so. That doesn't keep the staff, but it looks like we're gonna make it. It's like, any more questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What else we gonna call it? All right, next we'll do comments. We need to make sure that we comply with the law in regards to employee privacy. If a member of city council would like to discuss any issues pertaining to complaints, discipline, etc. of a city employee, those will first need to be discussed with the mayor, who is the chief city administrator for Idaho Code 50-602. After review of the complaint, discipline, etc., if it needs to go before city council, it will be listed under executive session on the upcoming meeting agenda. Comments?
No.
I got one thing I wanna bring up, where it's the, 250th year of America and 120 years since Beale was founded. We all know Kate Andrews, he does a lot of photography, he has a lot of history. We were looking at, inviting, see if we can display some of that photographs and all the stuff that he's got, to kind of, where we've been and where we're going type thing for this season. I'd like to get him set up where he can. What is it, April 17th was when Beale was founded. 1906 or 16, whatever, 120 years ago. And run it through till after the 4th of July. It'll just be a setup here. We're still working on some details, but I want to make the council. Let them know what I was looking in that regards.
I think it's cool.
Questions on that?
You got a lot of cool stuff. I mean,
I asked that again, why should I get a picture instead of an answer?
and the old family thing.
Yeah. And another thing I been working on is a youth advisory team. It's unofficial, just where I meet with kids that are school age. We can get together and talk and go look at the city, how Beale works. I can take comments from them and answers for them, just to get some interest in how things work and find out what the kids want, so if they want to come back to Beale. If the reasons why they don't want to, we can't fix stuff if we don't know what it is. Just another insight of what we need to do. So, I see. Go ahead.
How many kids have you have to?
3 in person and 6 total.
And what are their ages?
The youngest was, yes, 7, 8, right through there, and the older one, she's in high school.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's really exciting. I know that AIC, when we go for the summer conference, they do a youth council there. And so there might be some opportunity to send a few high schoolers and they have, like, we have our program and then they go through theirs. So they kind of coincide together.
Yeah, I think if there's enough interest and we can make it, more of an official thing that'll carry on.
Yeah.
You know. I think that'd be a great avenue for advice and ideas. Yeah.
You're talking, that doesn't say you're.
All right, citizen comments.
We have one, it was kind of a makeshift piece of paper up there, I apologize for that, so if you did wanna sign up and you did not sign up, we do have one, Clayton Goldberg.
Yes, Clayton Stroller.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm okay, you folks?
Yeah.
Good. I'm here to talk about my name is Clayton Stolberg and I own the local trash company, West End Sanitation. I've helped you guys out before on some contracting and we've worked pretty good together. And today I got what do we call that, a citation to vacate one of my clients being a mobile park. And it was kind of I talked to Jason about it and he for now suspended this date and he's going to try to rewrite this type of wordage that's in this ordinance you have for the city, which is probably 80% adequated. It's just it doesn't even pertain to the today now. Anyway. Yeah, when we go into the workings of it, and where I come into is into the opt-out people, the commercial entities, mobile home parks, dumpsters, ones that fit into that's not a residential service. And that's where my company provides service for these clientele. And there was two mobile home parks provided with this because of the size of their can. And I read over it's pretty good that there's I couldn't find the size of can in the scope of the meaning of the ordinance being opted out, being a commercial entity. And as they do other cities too, I've worked in Quinn, I've been around it. They choose not to do this because they look at it as segregation or discrimination to certain entities being opted out anyway. Just they're saying you're commercial, you have the right to do whatever you want, not forcing you into A, B, C, and D. But if we don't do A, B, C, and D, you gotta go find somebody else. So they choose to do a different route, and I would strongly suggest looking at some of your neighbors, how they're doing it. Cause it's very outdated. Very outdated, it's 1974. It was so old, and a lot of things don't even pertain to today. Because everything's going automated and it's different and it's coming down to the opt-out people for being businesses, commercial businesses where that's where I need to do my business. That's how I make my money. And taking that away from me takes away from the small business that's from people on the third generation, you're lighter rolling. That really, really hurts a small company doing things like that. And I would, as Jason rewrites that and puts some thought into it, I would ask that you guys would put a little time and thought into it. On seeing the ramifications of what it is, what it could be, and maybe the legal loopholes, maybe Twin or Filer or Kimberly's already been through, why they don't try to discriminate in commercial entities and that, because there's a. So I don't know for sure, but there's been several lawsuits that's never probably went to court, this thing has been dropped off for these reasons. Of discrimination against one company versus another company, and the city's trying to tell them to do something, and they're like, well, we're opt out, well, you can't opt out, well, we can opt out. And your deal, it says that to opt out, you gotta go before the city council. But I don't know if any of you ever had that, and there's a lot of dumpsters out there. And that's my concern today, is that came up, and I hope we can get together. You guys can come up with a updated garbage collection and disposal plan, especially on the, something that's crystal clear, that can be articulated plainly to a customer and me, why and how it is and isn't done. If there's any questions?
So for citizen comments, we're not.
Oh, okay, I know this is a future
We're here
thing.
listening.
Right, and that just, it's just hard to run a business when a government entity is trying to take away my business, where it, in here it says that a commercial entity can opt out. Then the city's saying, well, you can't opt out because of the certain size of container, which is segregation or discrimination, trash discrimination, is how I look at it. And anyway, that's my position. And I just hope to work with you and have a resolve on this, because I think that they're gonna rewrite it, then represent it. But I don't know what that is. But I really strongly suggest that you look at some of the neighbors, how they're doing it, Filer, Twin, Kimberly, maybe. I know Burley does their whole thing, but you gotta have your roll-off trucks, you gotta have your big dumpster trucks, I mean, and they're the ones that had the lawsuit like 40 years ago. But they couldn't discriminate from one to the other, so the city said, we'll just do it all. And they just got trucks to do it all. And, you know, that's a long time, 40 years ago, so I don't know. It's a lot changed since then, but. All right, thank you for your ear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else has anything they wanna bring up?
Okay, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? There we go.